Sick of losing? Maybe you're doing one of these things wrong. Hi, Ben from PH Tennis here, and today I'm not taking you through my top 5, but just 5 very common match play mistakes that unfortunately we see all too often. Before we get into the list itself, just a quick caveat, or maybe more of an umbrella. I get it. Tennis is really difficult. Match playing is a very stressful situation, and you'll hear a lot of people say, and if you're big tennis players, you will have felt it yourself. We get those analogies like it's like a boxing match meets chess and all that kind of thing, and that might be a slight exaggeration, but it is still a very stressful situation. You are out on your own, and a lot of these things are going to be just ideas for you to just make sure you're checking yourself and you're not making these common mistakes that you might not have been told before. Ultimately, we must remember that the objective of any tennis match is to win. Anything else is a little story, a little narrative you're telling yourself to make yourself feel better about the result. But ultimately, wins and losses are the purpose of competition. Bearing that in mind, let's get started with my first idea, and that is all to do with your technique. Straight out of the gate, your technique is going to be a problem during a match. It is very likely that at some point you're going to run out of skill, run out of talent. You're going to be found in a situation where you just don't have the answer for the problem you find yourself in. And here's me telling you that that's fine. You are not going to win every tennis match you play. Losing is not what we want, but it is okay. It doesn't make you a bad tennis player. And your technique is not going to change. It is not going to develop mid-match. One of the absolute hardest things to do is to use the tools you have to the best of your ability without worrying and trying to change and add and take away. So many times we see players on court attempting things for the first time in the middle of a match. If you are uncomfortable serving and volleying, for example, you are not going to learn how to do it at 3-all in a third set. Even though you might have established it as the right thing to do, if you have not got the program, you haven't developed and integrated the skill, it is not suddenly going to appear. When you are playing matches, your challenge is to try and use what you know you can do in a way to have the best possible outcome for yourself. But sometimes the player down the other end of the court is just going to be better than you, and that's fine. If you keep chopping and changing though, what you're not going to do is have the ability to learn and understand. Ideally, you'd come off the court and say, do you know what? My cross-court backhand just isn't good enough. And I kept doing it, and every time I was leaving the ball short and I was losing the point. That's great. That is useful information for you to move forwards. If you're having coaching, it's great feedback for the coach, and it helps you nail down something that you can work on and improve. But if every time the ball was coming into your backhand, you were changing what you were doing, trying this, trying that, adding this in, taking this away, you don't know what the problem was. You're going to end up guessing, and that's what we want to try and avoid. So tip number 1, or the first thing to think about, is walk into the match, take what you've got, use it, and see what happens. Do your best to win, but you're not the best isn't adding random new things on a whim. Next up, we have time and how to maximize it. One of the criticisms often leveled at tennis by people who don't play and don't enjoy watching it is its stop-start nature and the fact that a match can go on for hours. You playing, if we know full well that those little breaks are required to recover some energy, get your breath back, and this is the key thing, you should be thinking and planning and trying to work out what on earth is going on. The amount of players who rush between points, don't sit down at a change of ends, just start the next set straight away after the first one, blows my mind, because it is such a critical time to actually try and sit down and figure out what is happening. If you're winning, that's great, but you need to know why so you can keep doing it. And if you are losing, we need to make sure we're using that time to figure out what is going wrong. You will often hear, and I think this is probably part of the problem, coaches and commentators on TV saying, forget about the last point, move on. and they're not 100% right. That's a bit of a basic statement. Emotionally, yes, we want to move on from the past. We don't want a emotional hangover, whether it's joy or rage or frustration, whatever it might be. That isn't helpful. But the mistake in this situation we often see is the baby getting thrown out with the bathwater and we're completely ignoring what just happened. Every time you play the ball into your opponent's forehand, they are, I don't know, going back into your backhand every single time. But if every single time you forget about the last point and you don't notice, guess what? It's going to keep happening. But if you take that time between points to really sit back and think, what just happened? Okay, yeah, I think I've got an idea here. Try something different. That is the time to do it. When you are playing in the middle of a point, you are just playing. And when it stops, tennis comes off, brain comes on. What on earth is happening? Change of ends, even longer, between sets, more time. Use that time to really try and understand you, understand your opponent, and generally get a feel for the game and try and dive into the detail and see, well, what could I change to change this result in your favor? Next up, this is going to be a little bit boring and you would have heard this 100 times, and I do apologize, but it is very important. You've got to get the ball in the court. Making enough balls, keeping the ball in play is always going to help. Famous quote by Brad Gilbert, show me someone who never misses and I will show you their trophy cabinet. Now, careful, a little caveat again. Hitting a winner means you haven't missed. Not missing doesn't mean playing safe, doesn't mean being cautious, being like a pusher or a hacker, whatever you want to call it. Making balls means adapting to the situation, changing your game, being a versatile, well-rounded tennis player, and just keeping the ball in the court. Every single tennis player has issues, has problems, has little things they're not as good at as other things. What you need to do is keep the ball in the court so you can find out what they are. If you miss every second ball, the person down the other end might have the worst backhand in the world, but you're never going to find out. What often happens, if you start a match and you get in and you get into a nice groove and you're being nice and solid, that might be enough, and oftentimes it is enough. I can't tell you the number of people I've watched play who have never realised but the person down the other end of the court can't make 5 balls in a row because they're missing after 2. It is really, really, really critical, and every single tennis coach on the planet will be screaming this at you, and I know you're sick of hearing it, but get the ball in the court, see how the game goes, add more if you need to, but you are never going to add mistakes, right? We never want to add mistakes. Play a little bit within yourself, play carefully. I'm not saying don't go for it. If you go for it and it goes in, you haven't missed. It is a massive misconception to say you can't go for it. What I'm saying is make sure you are making balls, playing the right shots at the right time, not just arbitrarily going out there and seeing what happens. It is very, very important that you gather as much information as possible, get yourself in a nice rhythm, make more balls. Speaking of making more balls, we're going to talk about patterns of play and why patterns of play and tactics are really dangerous. It is the antithesis of versatility. It is the antithesis of adaptability. If you've already decided what you're going to do before the match starts, i.e. a tactic, you are ignoring the information that is in front of you. I think this is a very, very prevalent problem that is massively misunderstood and might be the reason why so many players are wasting the change of ends, because they don't need to think because they've already decided. During the warm-up, based on any other information you have, you can make a little plan for your opponent. You might decide that actually they've got a very long swing, so you're going to try and keep the ball low and fast. That's great, but if you attempt that, and then in the first couple of rallies you realise that actually when the ball is low and fast, they shorten their swing up, you're going to have to break from your tactic, break from your pattern of play. If the ball is short, you don't have to attack. If the ball is deep, you don't have to defend cross-court. You can defend whatever direction you like. You can attack however you want. You cannot have a fixed pattern in your mind before the game starts because it just might be wrong. There are things that might happen more often than others, but you need to be awake and aware so you can do it at the time. Tactics are dangerous things if you are fixed. It always needs to have that sort of bracket on the end of, I'm going to try and do X, but if it's not working, I'm ready to change to Y. Being aware, keeping your eyes open, making sure you're not just religiously hammering away exactly the same plan over and over again is going to be a surefire way of having more success on the court. And will lead very nicely into my final tip, which is coming up now. The last tip, like I mentioned at the start, is about what you are aiming to achieve from your match. I hear all the time, and in fact I heard this last night from a player I was teaching, that, oh, that's not even tennis, everything's all high and slow. Straight away I had to stop him right in his tracks and say, nope, that is not an acceptable sentence to say. Your opponent owes you nothing. Their tennis is their tennis. They can play however they want. Their objective is to beat you. If your objective is to have a nice time, play some good tennis, you are not competing in a match. If you want to have a good time and enjoy yourself, have a game with a friend, go to play some social tennis. But if you have started a match, you have one objective, and that is to win. The emotional attachment to the style of tennis, how the game happens, is only going to hold you back. And if you think about the other things we've already talked about, this kind of encapsulates it all. Players who have patterns of play, oh, I really like attacking, oh, but I can't because the guy down the other end just keeps floating everything down the middle. Well, you've got pattern of play, you're not paying attention to the change of ends, you're not going to be making enough balls, and ultimately you're trying to turn a match into a joyful experience. And I don't think a match itself is, the result might be, but quite often the process of getting there feels very, very much like a grind or a battle, not necessarily enjoyment. So there you have it, 5 of many things we could have talked about, but 5 important considerations next time you are playing a game. I'm going to say it again because I can't stress it enough. Your opponent owes you nothing. The match itself owes you nothing. You are trying to win. It is very difficult to win a game if you are religiously sticking to patterns of play, if you are wasting your time, if you're trying to fix technical stuff and ultimately not making enough balls. You've got to be adaptable and versatile and appreciate that the person down the other end of the court is doing everything they can to make your experience as miserable as possible. Be patient, be calm, think about what you're doing, play within yourself, but get the ball in the court and see what happens. At the end, you might be happy, great, well done you. You might be sad, but ultimately you should have plenty of things to take away and work on. There we go. I hope that all helps. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe so you never miss a thing from Josh, Joe or myself at PH Tennis. And if you're losing,
Maliki.
There's no customers, it's just Maliki.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, jeez.